actively listening to the other person, I am able to step out of my urge to explain and reason my points, and it helps me to take a step back and listen to the other person, hear where they're coming from, so that it helps me to step out of my ego and understand the other person and work on understanding before asking to be understood and yelling, and it helps to de-escalate conflict.
Being an active listener because I get to see how someone's feeling and how I hurt them or something like that.
Active listening when other people are sharing feelings or when we're in a fight or whatever it is really helps me to really listen sufficiently to what they're saying, and it really helps me to better understand what they're saying than to just listen and then go on talking about other things. It really helps me sit down and process what they're saying in a more efficient way.
I like the validation part of active listening because when I'm on the receiving end of that validation from the other person saying, "Thank you for sharing, I can understand how this might feel," things like that, phrases like that, help me to know that they heard me. And that feels really good. And often I notice that I am less angry and less frustrated if this is a conflict type of conversation. My urge to be angry sort of fizzles out when that other person gives me what I really want, which is validation, which is for the other person to acknowledge how I'm feeling.
My favorite part of active listening is acknowledging, because then I can...
What do we do when we acknowledge? What does it show the other person?
that we are listening to them, and they can share feelings with us, and we can have a better relationship.
Yeah, and when we acknowledge, we sort of, what does it tell the person when we're acknowledging them?
It tells the person that we are listening and we are understanding what they're saying.
I really like the step where I ask a follow-up question, because it really helps me not only listen to what they're saying, but get more information as to maybe why they're feeling this way, and it really helps me better understand what they're trying to say.
The other thing I really like about active listening is the question, are you sharing to be heard or are you sharing to find a solution? And I really like this because a lot of times I have found that I'm just sharing to be heard, and I don't really want another person's advice. I just want to have someone to listen to me. But sometimes I do want advice, and so those clarifying questions can help the person who's sharing to feel like they're getting what they want and what they need out of that conversation.
It's important for the person who's talking to keep in mind to use like I statements, like for me, I was feeling, or I was feeling that you, or something like that.
Most important to remember that you're sharing your feelings and your experiences, and you're not trying to blame other people. You're really just sharing purely how you feel in this situation.
Something that's important for the sharer to remember is to use I statements. You're not sharing, when you don't use I statements, often your feelings turn into blaming and shaming the other person, which makes the other person feel attacked and often doesn't lead to active listening. So if the person who's sharing can use I statements, that will help to keep the rising conflict down. Another thing that is important is often, I know that body language is really important, for me at least. If the person who is sharing has correct body language, isn't in a defensive position or like that, those nonverbal cues other people pick up on, especially the one who's listening. So body language is really important. Tone of voice, loudness of voice, all of those things come together to either create a nurturing environment, a safe environment, or an environment that creates tension and anger and frustration.
I remember a time when I used active listening when me and my sister got in a fight, and I wasn't that kind when she was drawing something, and she shared her feelings and I acknowledged them, and then we were all better, and it was better to just get it done instead of having that sick feeling in you all day that you did something bad.
One time I had my friend over and we were talking in my room, and she was sharing some difficult feelings, and she was just sharing some feelings, and I felt really honored that she felt safe to share those with me. And so I used active listening, and I used all the steps to really show that I was thankful and show my attentiveness, and it really helped me to be present for her and show that I was a safe person and that I would listen to her feelings, and it really helped her feel heard.
I have a friend who shares different religious viewpoints than I do. And through active listening, we have been able to avoid potential arguments that would hurt and damage our relationship. And instead, what I've found, and what she's found actually, is that we look forward to these faith discussions about our differences and some commonalities, because we've been able to get to know each other better. And all of this has come through active listening, because we're not worried about being right. I'm not worried about telling her that my views are right and forcing my views on her, and she's not worried about forcing her views on me. So through that mutual agreement that we can talk about these things and don't feel an obligation to change each other's minds, we have been able to listen to each other, to understand each other, to come from a place of love that has nurtured our friendship instead of torn it apart.
A time with my friend when we got in a fight, and I was sharing my feelings and she acknowledged them, and we had a stronger relationship because she acknowledged, and we keep doing that to this day.
A few weeks ago, I had a situation come up with Avery where I was left feeling sad and unheard. And so I waited for a while, and then I came back to her and I shared my feelings calmly using I statements. And Avery responded to me, and I was really touched by the way that she handled this situation, because she used the active listening steps, and I felt really cared about in that moment. And it was a tender moment. It was a special moment, because I felt like my younger sister really cared about the way that I felt around her. And it was a moment that, instead of creating tension, which could have happened had I shared my feelings in an attacking sort of way, engendered love and tenderness, and it was a moment that I really hold close to me.
I feel like with my sisters, especially when we get into fights about different things, it really helps not just yelling at them and trying to speak over them and get our point across. It really helps us sit down and listen to each person's side, and it helps us sort through our differences in a more efficient way. And it really helps us better understand, how the other person is feeling in the situation. And yeah, I think it's just really has benefited my relationships with my sisters especially.
For you, Reese, is, are you thankful that we practice active listening in our family?
I am, because then it can keep us closer as a family or friends, and it'll help our relationship with others.
Thank you. Thanks for being a part of this interview. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.